welcome to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's public meeting with the Tennessee Valley Authority. The purposes of the meeting are twofold. One, to discuss the results of the NRC's confirmatory action letter inspection. Come on in, please, that we conducted at Browns Ferry in mid-December. And secondly, to provide a summary of our performance review of Browns Ferry, in part because of that results of that confirmatory action letter inspection. This is what NRC calls a Category 1 meeting, which is a meeting between the NRC and the licensee, in this case the Tennessee Valley Authority. And we will conduct the meeting that way, at least for the first part of the meeting. And I'll put up an agenda momentarily, but after that formal portion of the discussion between the NRC and the Tennessee Valley Authority representatives seated at the table to my right, we will break for just a minute and reposition some chairs in front of the dais here, the desk, and then have a discussion with members of the public who are here. If you have any questions of the NRC officials or any of the individuals on the phone. I understand there's one individual on the phone right now. But that's how we'll conduct the meeting. What I'd like to do very briefly is introduce the NRC team and then have Mr. Polson introduce his colleagues. Again, my name is Victor McCurry. I'm the Regional Administrator for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's Region 2 office in Atlanta. Region 2 is responsible for all the operating reactors in the southeast at 17 different sites, 32 reactors, including the 3 here at Browns Ferry. And we're also responsible for all the operating fuel cycle facilities across the country and all new commercial nuclear construction in the United States. Immediately to my left is the new, or relatively new, branch chief for the Tennessee Valley Authority sites, which includes Browns Ferry, Sequoia, and Watts Bar. That's Mr. Jonathan Bartley. Jonathan will present part of the presentation this evening. Seated to Jonathan's left is Mr. Craig Kontz. Craig is a senior project manager for the Tennessee Valley Authority sites, and he will present the confirmatory action letter inspection results. On the left side of the room, on the front row, Dave Dumbacher. Dave is a senior resident inspector at Browns Ferry. Dave, why don't you stand? And with him are Mr. Lundy Presley. Lundy is one of the 2 resident inspectors assigned to Browns Ferry, and then Mr. Tom Stevens is the 2nd resident inspector here at Browns Ferry. Also joining us this evening is Mr. Roger Hanna. Roger is a senior public affairs officer for the NRC's Region 2 office in Atlanta. Charlotte, I'm sorry. Charlotte is the site admin assistant for Browns Ferry, and we appreciate her support in coordinating this meeting. Mr. Polson.
Hey, my name is Keith Polson. I'm the site vice president at Browns Ferry. To my right is Steve Bono, who is the general manager of plant operations, and to his right is Jim Morris, who's the executive VP of operations out of our corporate office.
Okay, again, I'll have next Mr. Kontz give you the results and share with Mr. Polson primarily the results of the confirmatory action letter inspection. And after he finishes, Mr. Bartley will discuss the Unit 1 regulatory status, at which point, Mr. Polson, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll have the opportunity for public questions.
Okay, a little background information. In June of 2013, the NRC completed a 95003 supplemental inspection at Browns Ferry. This inspection identified several issues that warranted revisions to the licensee's integrated improvement plan. The inspection team reviewed the scope of TVA's action plans and determined that they were adequate to address the issues that were identified. Following completion of the 95003 inspection, the NRC is required at a minimum to issue a confirmatory action letter to document the licensee's commitments as discussed in the integrated improvement plan and any other written or verbal commitments. In support of the post-95003 inspection confirmatory action letter, on August 9, 2013, TVA submitted a letter to the NRC for commitments related to Browns Ferry's integrated improvement plan, which identified both short-term or Tier 1 and long-term or Tier 2 actions. The NRC reviewed the Tier 1 and Tier 2 actions and issued a confirmatory action letter on August 22nd, 2013. This letter confirmed TVA's Tier 1 actions, which when completed by TVA and verified to be accurate by the NRC, would reasonably serve to inform the NRC's decision-making regarding closure of the red finding and the transition of Browns Ferry Nuclear Plant Unit 1 out of the multiple repetitive degraded cornerstone column, consistent with the NRC's reactor oversight process. This letter also confirmed that the NRC understands that the items listed as Tier 2 or the long-term items would be subject to regular NRC inspections. The confirmatory action letter follow-up inspection was completed on December 13th, 2013. The objectives for this inspection were 1, to determine whether adequate corrective actions had been completed for 1 severity level 3 violation and 10 of the confirmatory action letter Tier 1 items. 2, to verify that the root causes of these enforcement actions had been identified, the generic implications had been addressed, and the licensee's programs and practices had been appropriately enhanced to prevent recurrence. 3, to determine whether CAL actions were effectively implemented as appropriate, and finally, to determine whether closure of the red finding and the severity level 3 violation was appropriate, consistent with the NRC's reactor oversight process and enforcement policy. The inspection team consisted of 8 members from 3 of our regional offices and from headquarters. These were senior engineers and inspectors and 1 individual from headquarters that dealt with safety culture. Inspection results. The inspection team performed a detailed review of the implementation of the confirmatory action letter commitments and determined that the licensee met the requirements for closure of all 10 Tier 1 commitments. No findings or violations of more than minor significance were identified during the inspection. The team documented observations to be used during assessment of Browns Ferry's performance in the report. The overall team observations were that Browns Ferry had implemented the actions as laid out in the confirmatory action letter, and although they were making tremendous strides in improving site operation, continued efforts were required to sustain and improve upon their current performance. Based on the NRC's inspection and closure of the short-term Tier 1 commitments, the NRC concluded that the confirmatory action letter is closed. The basis for the NRC's conclusions is documented in the inspection report. We understand that TVA will continue to implement their integrated improvement plan and Tier 2 commitment items, and that TVA will provide written correspondence to the NRC when these actions are closed. The NRC has determined that the results of this inspection, in conjunction with previously completed inspection activities, provided adequate assurance that the completed or planned corrective actions were sufficient to address the performance issues that led to the red finding associated with the failure of 1 FCV 7466 and the severity level 3 violation of 10 CFR 59, completeness and accuracy of information. Therefore, the red finding and the severity level 3 violation are closed. And therefore, the performance issue that led to the red finding will not be considered as an action matrix input after the end of the 4th quarter of 2013.
Okay, just be complete. The inspection report that Mr. Consul was referring to was issued on this last Monday. It should be available in Athens. What was the inspection report number, Craig?
2013-014.
That report should be available. All right, now I'd like to discuss the current regulatory status of Browns Ferry Unit 1. Our last formal assessment cycle, semi-annual assessment cycle, was conducted in August of 2013. During that assessment, Unit 1 was determined to be in the multiple repetitive degraded cornerstone column due to the red finding in the mitigating systems cornerstone associated with the low pressure coolant injection valve problem in 2010. However, even though the red finding is closed, there are still several inputs for Browns Ferry 1 into the action matrix. Those are 2 white performance indicators in the mitigating systems cornerstone. One is the emergency AC power system, which became white in the 4th quarter of 2012. The other one is the high-pressure coolant injection system beginning first quarter of 2013. So what do those do to the regulatory status? Even though the red finding is closed, Unit 1 will continue to remain in column 4 due to these other inputs. Beginning in October 1st, 2013, Unit 1 again met the definition of a repetitive degraded cornerstone for the mitigating systems cornerstone and described in our manual chapter 0305. This was due to having a degraded cornerstone with 2 white inputs beginning in the fourth quarter of 2012 for more than 4 quarters, with one of those quarters having an additional white input. And that was the first quarter of 2013, and that was a white input for failure to implement engineering change process for training for the shutdown instructions for the plant for fires. The next slide, you can see a graphical representation of what I'm talking about. You can see that white violation going to the first quarter of 2013, the 2 MSPIs white across the bottom, and you can see that first quarter of 2013 is, once we got into the fourth quarter of 2013, that's where they met the more than 4 quarters degraded, with 1 quarter having 3 white inputs. So that's status.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to talk kind of in general here, kind of the history of how we came up with the integrated improvement plan and what the basis was. And I want to talk about where we're at right now in the process, and then I want to go over some of the results that we've seen at the plant, and then talk our ultimate goal is really sustainability of our improvements and really driving this plant to excellence. So the integrated improvement plan comes out of the 95003 inspection. The reason that this plan was built, obviously, to address the red finding. Part of the process, we do a lot of self-assessments, and we came up with fundamental problem areas. So we had to address those fundamental problem areas. And then also, we had gone through an independent nuclear safety culture survey where the results weren't that good at that time. So this improvement plan was really designed to improve the safety culture at the plant. It was also designed to reduce risk at the plant, especially fire risk, improve the equipment reliability, and then again, the key point I want to emphasize, this wasn't really an exercise to get through the 95003 process and be removed from column 4 and have the red finding closed. This was really an effort for sustained performance improvement and drive it for excellence. So that's the way the plan was designed. Next slide. So I've used this slide at almost every public meeting that we've been at. And if you look to the left, that's where we started, all the inputs. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I just wanted to show that we are making progress as we move to the right. And you can see we're at the stage right now where performance is improving, and we need to continue that, and again, really drive for excellent performance at the site. Next slide. So, big picture, there were 19 fundamental problem areas that we came up with. And when we sat down as a management team to try to address all 19 of these fundamental problems and communicate that to the organization, we decided that we would further map those into 5 real focus areas. And those 5 focus areas were the corrective action program, accountability of everyone at the site, operational decision making, fire risk reduction, and equipment reliability. And those 5 focus areas, with the actions that we took, really were designed overall to improve the safety culture at the plant. Next slide. So results. So, like I said earlier, we bring in an independent group, company, that performs this safety culture survey. And what that it consists of a written survey by all the majority of the employees, it's voluntary, and then this company goes out and interviews the employees. So if you look at the results, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but the bottom line, the first survey that we took back in 2011, we were fourth quartile or third quartile in almost every category. And then when you move over to, we had the same company came in, so we were comparing apples to apples. In 2013, when the survey was conducted, we made dramatic improvements in every category. 4 out of the 6 categories, we actually improved by 2 quartiles. Go on to the next page. And then there were 2 categories, general culture and work environment, and then leadership, management, and supervisory skills, where we actually improved into the first quartile. And, but then if you look down lower on that chart, also back in 2011, the Synergy group identified 77 weaknesses at the site, and then in 2013, that was down to 4. And then priority organizations, meaning these are organizations that required some additional attention. In 2011, we were at 23. In the last survey, we were at 4. And I don't want anybody to walk away and think that we're satisfied with just having 4. When we got that survey, we started taking immediate actions on those weaknesses in those priority groups. And we've already seen improvements in those areas. Next slide. So then again, sustainability and the drive for excellence. So here's some of the things, major things that we're doing right now. We have a procedure upgrade project in flight. We're going to go through all of our procedures and make sure that they're up to industry standards, that they're not confusing to the workforce. That process is going to take us a couple of years to get through. We have prioritized all the procedures that are frequently used, and we also rank them by risk. And those are the procedures that we're going after first. I also mentioned fundamental problem areas. And we're going to close out the fundamental problem areas. But one of the key things, we bring each of these areas to a board where a review gets done, a presentation. But one of the questions that we have to satisfy ourselves as a management team at Browns Ferry is, are the actions that we took sustainable, and are they going to get us to excellence before they can be closed? Also, we're transitioning to National Fire Protection Association, called it NFP 805. This is a risk-based fire protection strategy, but we didn't wait on this. We have submitted the license amendment that is being reviewed by the NRC right now, but as we were developing the license amendment request, we were actually doing modifications at the plant all along to help reduce the fire risk at the plant. And those modifications are continuing now, and they're going to move out for the next couple of years. Equipment reliability, we've made great strides in equipment reliability at the plant. And just for example, if you look at what happened in this area over the past 3 or 4 weeks, with 3 different cold fronts coming through, where the power in the valley, I mean, there was really no more power to go out and buy. And our units ran reliably through all 3 of the weather conditions that came through. The other thing that we're doing, you know, we talk about the integrated improvement plan, but really now it's excellence. So we are in a transition period where there's still some actions outstanding from the integrated improvement plan. However, we're going to make it an integrated excellence plan where we're going to start comparing ourselves to the rest of the industry to be the top of the industry. And then the last thing is the biggest piece of that I consider for sustainability is we've established an organization at our corporate office over the last 4 or 5 years, and we call that a governance, oversight, execution, and support model. Some companies call it a GOES model. And really what that is they provide the governance, and then they're always looking at us. So where before at TVA, I'd say if you went back 4, 5, 6 years ago, if one of the sites were to start to slide, there wasn't that structure at corporate that could catch it early and turn it. And now we have that organization in place. It's going to stay there.